Welcome to Have You Done It Yet? The YouTube channel designed to help you and me with the jobs that just haven't been done yet. And in this video, I'm going to be showing you the dust extraction unit I believe to be the best value for money on the market. And to prove that theory, I've thought of a few tests we can put the dust extraction through to see whether it is really the best value dust extraction on the market. Let me show you which one it is. As you could probably tell from the thumbnail, yes, I picked the Evolution. It is the R15 vac, wet and dry vacuum. And before I explain to you the reasons why I chose this dust extraction, we're going to open up the box and see what you get inside. Got your tube. What I am going to say is it is only a 1.5 meter long tube. It's got the unit itself out of the box. It doesn't look like there's actually that much assembling required. Got your socket here. So one of the reasons why I picked this dust extraction unit is you can have a max 1700 watts on the power output, and for a budget option that is one of the best out there. Most of them are 1500, and that's, I suppose, something that's going to be dependent on what you plan to run off it. So let's see how this works. I have watched a couple of YouTube reviews. Again, something else that swayed me towards this one was the YouTube reviews. And you got some extension pieces on here to make it easier to clean. And you got a narrow one. And it's good how it all fits in this little compartment here. Seeing that these were plastic, I wasn't sure how durable these were going to feel, whether they were going to flex and just feel flimsy, or how well they go together. So that just gives you a long pole basically, so you could use it as a vacuum cleaner in your shop. And these extension pieces just fit straight in. Maybe it would have been nice to have a bristle version of this, whether that's something that you can buy from Evolution. I don't know, I'll have to have a look on the website, I suppose. So far, I mean, I've not used that yet, but it does feel quite rigid, quite sturdy. And again, just clips. Was going to say, clips nice and easily in here. It's a little stiff. There is your dust filter. That's meant to be the water filter. Okay, that doesn't fill me with much confidence. Locking mechanism on this. This just pulls out, does it? It's a snug fit. That just pulls out. You had to clean the filter out then. And I think the replacement ones of these, from what I've seen on Amazon, are about £9, £10. And I imagine this fits over like that when you're sucking up anything wet, which isn't going to be very often for my case. So I suppose you just need to find somewhere to store that. Let's slot that back in. That, to be fair, goes in easier than it does come out. And that is locked in there. Pretty simple stuff. So setup is nice and easy out of the box. Just remember to take that water filter out of the inside, connect your hose, plug it in, and you're good to go. And while I do that to put it through its first test on seeing how good it is at cleaning up this workshop, let me talk to you about some of the other options I could have chosen instead of this one. So there was two other options I was considering for a dust extractor. When I first started looking into dust extractors, I was just going down the lines of, let's find the cheapest dust extractor that I can get, and I looked on eBay and I found one for £55, and I'm glad that I never picked that one, because after looking back on eBay to try and get a screenshot to show you guys which one I was looking at, I can no longer find it, which doesn't fill me full of that much confidence. But the second dust extraction unit I was considering was one off Amazon, and it was a Vac Master. Same sort as the one off eBay, size wise, 30 litres, on wheels, like a giant Henry vacuum basically, and it still had that plug-in feature. The only difference between these two was the price, as this one at the time on Amazon was £90, which then led me to the Evolution one, which at the time of purchase was £77. So that was it for its first test, and I've got to say I'm actually quite pleased on how well it did. I know it is just sucking up dust off the floor, but it made light work of it. And I've only had a quick whip round, and place is already looking a lot tidier. And you would have seen in that footage, I do have a new tool in the workshop. It is gifted to me, and it is a little bit unloved, shall we say. I'm going to be looking forward to doing a future video on that. Now, let's test out the blow function on this extraction, and to use the blow feature could not be simpler. What I am going to say though is, if you do plan to use the thinner nozzle for the blow feature, take this out before you connect the hole to the blow function. But let's get back to some comparisons. After ruling out the one on eBay, I was left with the two options, the Vac Master and the Evolution, and with there not being much difference in price, the only other difference was the capacity. The Evolution only has a 15 litre capacity, so half of the Vac Master, which did put me off a little bit. But the more I looked into it, I realised that the Evolution is more powerful and allows a higher watt tool to be plugged into the extraction unit, which did help sway me. So the blow function works. It blows air out. It is useful on the shelves, as you would have seen from that footage. Some of the lighter loose stuff on your shelving is likely to blow off, so be mindful on where you are pointing the end of this thing. And it does kick up a lot of dust in the air. Now I want to see how many of my tools is this end going to fit to, and am I going to have to buy some adapters? So let's have a look. Jigsaw cutter. Do we have a fit? Sander. This is what you want it to fit in really the most. Is that going to fit in there? Might be a problem if it doesn't. No. Planer. I've actually used this a fair few times. Circular saw. The only other tool is the new table saw that needs cleaning up. Now, not quite sure what this is down here. Not really clued up on the table saw, so if you can let me know in the comments. But wherever I try and put this, whether it fits in there, or whether it ain't going in there, whether this just comes off. Haha! It's a loose fit. It fits, but it's not great. So 2 out of 5 tools isn't really that great. So cut to the next scene where I'm testing these tools with this dust extraction, and hopefully I would have found some adapters so I can use some of the other tools. So 1 Amazon Prime delivery later and a fresh trim, and I have these adapters, $6.99 for 3 of them, and I believe if you need to size up or size down, you just cut them to whatever size you need. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these so they fit some more of my tools, and then we'll have a look at trying the tools out with the dust extraction. And that was actually easier than I expected. $6.99 well spent, and I only needed to use the 1 adapter to make it fit a lot more of my tools. Bit of a tight squeeze, but it fits in the planer. A little bit looser than I'd like on the circular saw. The end that I cut off of this adapter I've actually used to go around the sander, I think that should be okay. We're going to find out. I'm going to set up some pieces of wood so I can test all these with the extractor on and off. I don't know whether it's all jigsaw cutters in general or just the design of this jigsaw cutter, but I don't actually think the dust extraction made any difference to how much dust went into the air. Planer plugged in, didn't take much at all to be able to show you. What it does show though is how bad my blade is on my planer. Well, that actually made a massive difference with the planer. Literally no dust whatsoever was coming out of this thing when it was plugged into the dust extractor. So now, circular saw. Another win. The difference was night and day. You could definitely tell there was a lot less dust coming out. So last but not least, the sander. So that one at first was hard to see the sawdust come out. That's why I decided to stand behind the sander so you could see it on my black top, and I was covered in very fine dust. Now the dust extractor did reduce the amount of dust that was coming out of it, but the downside is it did fall out of the DA. So I do need to try and get that fit a little bit tighter, just so I'm not having to hold it in place. Dust extractor itself, having it connected to the tools, does seem to get in the way a little bit, but this is the first time I've had a dust extractor, so I'm not used to having it. And it's going to be better for my health and better for the workshop if it's there. So it's something I'm just going to have to get used to. But that is not all for the test for this dust extractor. While I tidy up my workshop again, I'm going to show you some clips from a couple of days ago when I used this dust extractor for two different uses that you could use to either persuade yourself or persuade someone else to let you buy a dust extractor. Check this out. And the first of those tests is to see how well it will do at cleaning out the car. And this is something that I'd normally use the Henry vacuum for. And as I'm constantly using the car to take stuff to the tip, the back of the car gets in an absolute state. And I don't want to keep filling up the Henry with all this sawdust, dirt and stones. And to make the job even easier, the Henry attachments even fit onto the end of this extractor, so it made cleaning the car a hell of a lot easier. But the second test wasn't as successful as I thought it might have been, using it as a leaf blower. I just cut this hedge and all the branches and the bunched up leaves didn't really move. It did eventually sort of work after I'd grabbed as much of the branches and the leaves as possible. When I was just left with the loose, scatty bits of leaves that you can't really pick up by hand, it managed to blow them into a pile. So those are my reasons why I believe this is the best budget dust extractor unit that you can buy. And after doing my tests, I stand by what I say, and I genuinely believe for the money, this is a really, really good product and something that should definitely be considered if you haven't already got a dust extractor. But if there is another dust extractor out there that you believe is better than this one for a better price, or even slightly more but you get better value for money, let me know in the comment section down below. I'd like to check it out and hear your thoughts. But for now, I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I'll see you on the next job.